Welcome to Hot Seat, where we discuss stories of growing up on the internet. My name is Hector, and today with me we have our special guest Cindy, and today we're going to be talking about internet friends. So let's get started. So we're super excited to have Cindy on the show today. Cindy is a longtime friend of mine who does modding on many Discord servers that I'm a part of, and she's going to share her experiences on navigating the internet, making and losing internet friends, and the importance of language. So, hey Cindy, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here today to share my experiences with you.
It's always a joy having you around, chatting with you, just about anything and everything. Today we're really gonna hone in on a conversation around internet friends. I think that, and this is just me, I think that we sometimes take what we have for granted, especially when it comes to the internet. Speaking from experience, from personal experience, the internet has been around for us. I would say most of our lives, right? We were, well, I'm in my mid 20s, and I remember growing up early on the internet and seeing how barren it was, and now comparing it to how it is today, we see so much. So I wanted to start off by talking about growing up on the internet and what that was like for you way back when. Do you have a memory that was captivating for you when you were young, when it came to computers or the internet, just being around the technology? What was your earliest moment?
I would have to say, well, I would have two experiences that I remember pretty clearly in my life. The first one would be like whenever I went to my grandmother's house in Brooklyn, she had like what computers used to look like. It was like that big box and it was like already yellowed and all that stuff. It was pretty old, but I would go on it and like just play like the pinball, like solitaire, when they had those card games like Spider and
Oh
like
yeah.
stuff like that. And then like my other memory would be when my parents had gotten the all-in-one computer for our apartment. I remember like games like when Toontown came out, that Disney's Toontown
Toontown.
game
Yes,
that
yes.
you would play like the free trial a couple of times because you had to pay for it. It was like one of those like subscription-based games
Right.
when they came out and stuff like that. I mean, I'm in my early 20s, so like I only experienced so much when it came to like when the internet first came out, but I remember like when my grandmother, she had Windows 98 on her computer.
Wow. That's old. That's old school.
Yeah.
That's cool. I was just looking up Toontown Online. For those that don't know, old school MMO made by Disney in the year 2003.
Yep.
So this is showing the age of the internet in its infancy right there. It was a cool game for its time, and definitely a subscription based game for sure. For me, the closest comparison that I can make is with the game called RuneScape. I'm sure you're somewhat
Oh yeah.
familiar with the game. Is old school, just medieval knights and dragons and quests and all that good stuff. But for me, I remember I would play the entire free version of the game. And my mom, she was very strict with me when I was growing up. When it came to games, I didn't have like a ton of money when I was growing up, but a subscription based game is something completely different because it's one thing if you really enjoy the game and you pay $60 as a flat rate. You can enjoy the game for what it is. You can have it for many years. You can always go back to it and replay it if you want. But for subscription based games, you don't have that luxury. Once the 30 days is up and your membership is expired, it's expired, and then you're limited to what you can do in game. And for some games, they only have paid memberships as well. So for RuneScape, they had a free version of the game that gave you like 32 quests or something like that. So it was like a small chunk of the map that you can get through and play through, and you can still interact with people online, which is really cool. And I remember just busting through everything that there was to do during that time. And this was a few years after Two Town. This was 2005, 2006.
Mhm.
So the paid subscription was maybe about $8 at the time, which is kind of a lot. Even in today's currency, like $8 for a month of video games, like you got to play the game a lot. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, I was on it consistently, and I remember I would charge my landline the $8. I wouldn't go to the store and like buy like a gift card, but I would call, and there was a way to charge my telephone bill where I would have to like call a specific number and put in a code, and then they would charge the $8 to my bill, and my mom would pay it every month. So shout out to her for
Oh,
making the games
wow.
come true. But yeah, that was one way in which I played back then, and definitely like way back when. I remember having tons of fun on that game. MMOs are they're intense. There's always a lot to do, right?
I feel like it's a dangerous, like, I guess, lifestyle, like to play MMOs all the time because $8 for back then is a lot, but now,
Yeah,
like playing like WoW or Final Fantasy 14, they're $15
$15.
a month. Like,
Yikes.
and so it's like one of those things where it's like, yeah, $15, you have to be able to commit, and it's a lot because a lot of them can be very like grindy. So it's like constantly playing. But when someone like when you're an adult and you don't have a lot of time to do that, it's kind of hard. So it's not really worth paying that much every month just to play.
I agree. And if you have a friend that you really enjoy playing that type of a game with, it makes it so much better. In my opinion, I can hang out with one person, and if we're both into this MMO type thing, MMOs are normally layered. There's so many things you could do. You could go fishing, you could go do quests together, you can go player killing together. There's like a million different things you can do. And depending on the MMO, there might be more or less. For the ones that I played, there was definitely a lot to do, to the point where like I never fully completed everything. But I
Oh
think I
yeah.
think you have to be a specific type of person to play an MMO and complete everything. It's really difficult, very grindy, like you said,
And
and
to
it's just a
stick
lot of
with
work.
it. To definitely
Yeah,
stick with it and not, like, get bored of it and not want to play something else. And it really does suck because a lot of them nowadays, you have to buy the expansions to, like, really, like, continue on with the story, and sometimes those expansions can cost, like, an actual game that you only
yeah.
buy one time for, 60 bucks. So it's like, is it really worth it? I mean, I'm sure it's worth it to a lot of people, but for me, not particularly, at least right now. I could change my mind like the next like 3, 4 years.
That's 100% fair. Honestly, like I didn't really get back into MMOs because of time constraints. I think that's most people's it's a time constraint. But when I got back into MMOs, I got back into Final Fantasy 14. And Final Fantasy 14, much like every other MMO, has a million things to do in it. And it was at the start of the pandemic. And I remember we have a server, it's called Geek Retreats, a Discord server that we hang out in. And it's one of the servers in which I interact with Cindy the most. And that server, during that period of time, everybody decided to get Final Fantasy 14 since nobody was working and we all had extra time to do what we needed to do. And we would spend like literally like 8 hours a day playing this game. One, because it was so addictive, but two, because in order to get any progress done in the game, you need to put that amount of time into it. So 8 hours a day, you can really see the needle moving. Obviously, you get a little fatigued from doing that for a little bit because it feels like a damn job. But other than that, I had a blast, but only when I had the time to do it. You ask me to do something like that now, there's no way I'm going to be able to sit down and spend 8 hours a day playing this game, let alone 1 hour a day playing this game. For some people, that's too much of a commitment.
Yeah, definitely.
But one of my earliest memories is also much like yours, going to my aunt's house, and she had, I'll call it the dinosaur computer. I forget what you refer to it as, but I'm gonna call it the dinosaur computer because it had that big back.
Oh yeah.
It was like beige and yellowing, like you said. I think it was a Gateway, and it also ran Windows 98. Do you remember Gateway,
Oh my
the
god.
company that had the little cow as the logo? I guess
Yes, I think I only ever saw one gateway computer in my whole life, and this
they're
is
so
but it
bad.
was it was the laptop version. It was
Ooh,
like a thick it obviously it had the gateway logo on the back on like the cover, and then it was like super thick. Like now obviously computers, like a lot of laptops now are like super thin and like they have like they're like 10 times better than what they were back then. But it was like a super thick gateway computer, and this thing ran like so slow. It was so slow. It was so bad. It wasn't mine, but I used it for like when I was doing schoolwork. It was my parents' friend's laptop that they let me use at the time.
hmm.
But we also had a desktop computer, which I guess can also go into like early memories, is when Wizard 101 came out. Like
Oh
that's
man,
that's an MMO that I remember that I tried to play and it put a virus on my computer. And my mom
what?
got very mad at me and she never let me on that computer ever again after that. unless it was specifically for school.
Wow. That's a life changer right there. That must have had you a little worried when you put the virus on the computer, no?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But the thing is, I didn't know. I had no idea because I had done it, and then, like, for some reason, the game wouldn't work because it's also a subscription base. And I
Right.
and obviously still being pretty new to, like, I guess, PC gaming and stuff like that, you're still kind of learning how things work. So, like, I was still like, because I was like, "Oh, this looks really cool," because obviously websites had a million ads on them before, I guess, before ad blocker existed or anything like that.
Oh yeah, 100%. They had the banner ads all over the
Oh, yeah.
webpage,
So, like,
plastered everywhere.
Wizard 101, when it came out, it was everywhere. I saw it all over the place. And I was like, this looks really cool. And they would show like commercials like on TV and stuff. And I was like, I want to play this. This sounds really, really cool. So I downloaded it, and then I still like a little kid. I'm like 8. So I'm still like trying to figure it out. So
Right.
like, but I guess like I never got it to work, and then for some reason after that when my mom tried to use it, she noticed that like something was wrong, and like she came to me and she's like, "Did you download something?" And I was like, "No." 'Cause, you don't wanna get in trouble. But,
Of course.
like, she found out that I had downloaded the game, and she's like, "You put a virus on the computer, you're not allowed on here," and, and she had to try and fix it, and I wasn't allowed to go on that computer unless it was for, like, schoolwork anymore and, like, play, like, games or whatever. Because I used to play, like, all those, like, Flash games and stuff like that.
Long live the Flash games. Long live mini clip.
Oh, long live, like, when you go on, like, the Nickelodeon games or, like like,
The Disney Channel
Disney
games.
Channel games, like
Oh my god. There was one I used to play religiously when I was, like, in the 4th grade. It was like a Teen Titans, like a Street Fighter type game. It was a fighting game.
oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
It was a Flash game. It was super cool, and I remember, like, I would always play as Cyborg. I don't know why. I think just because he could shoot, and I was like, "Oh,
Uh,
yeah, like, that's, kinda cool," you know?
right.
Wow. I don't know. I just have the faint memory of just telling kids in school like, "Hey, I'm gonna beat you up in this game," and they were like, "No, I'm gonna beat you up." And then we would go to the library, and I would win sometimes, and I would just like be too much of a spoiled winner, I guess you could say.
Oh,
I
yeah.
was like one of those like jerks, like, you suck. Gotcha. You live and you learn, right?
Oh, no, I know exactly what you mean. I think it was like, 'cause I moved to Florida after, because things happened. So family moved to Florida, and then I used to always go to, I know they have places like this in New York, but I used to go to, like, these arcade places all the time, especially when I went to, like, summer camp and stuff, and they would have, like, this one arcade game that I would always play. I don't remember what it's called, don't like, if you were to ask me, like, what it was, I couldn't remember, but it was basically like, like, those top-down kind of, like, multiplayer, like, magic games, like, you would go through a dungeon and you would, like, fight these monsters to get to the end, like, kinda thing. So
Like a
I
Diablo type.
kind of, but I don't think it was Diablo. But, like, but I would always play with, like, my friends and stuff, and that was, like, the one game I always used to go to. I wish I could remember what it was, but, like, if you show it like, if I looked at it, if I could find, like, any sort of video or, like, picture with it, I could tell you, like, this was it. But I wish I could remember what it was called. But yeah.
That was the juice back then. That was
Oh,
that was
yeah.
what got you going.
Basically, yeah.
That's pretty cool. There's so many games that we can like relate to. But moving on, I wanted to segue a little bit into a game that we're gonna have here on the show right now. It's called Easier or Harder. Very simple concept. I'm gonna make a statement, and you let me know whether it's easier or harder for you or for somebody else that might be in your shoes. Um, and then just explain a little bit as to why you chose that answer, and we can have a little conversation about it as well. So I'm gonna start off. We're gonna talk about making friends on the internet, easier or harder.
Easier. And the only reason why I say that is because you're behind a screen, and the only thing that people can really judge you on, I guess, like, depending on the game, is either how good you are, or even, like, okay, kind of going into something a little side, but it does fit into this. Like, being a female on the internet is something that it does come easier making friends. So once they hear you, they're either going to be really mean to you or like really nice to you. I always found it easier for me to make friends because I'd play games like Minecraft and stuff. So I would join servers to meet people and I would make friends that way and that kind of thing. So for me, it was always easier, but I definitely understand like the harder aspect of making friends on the internet.
I could definitely see it both ways as well, but I feel like I'm in the same boat as you. I do feel like it's a little bit easier for myself to make friends on the internet, for many of the same reasons that you outlined. Being behind the screen, you feel like you're not being judged as hard, I guess you can say. You feel less pressure to kind of like appeal like somebody else, to make yourself more like somebody else. So I do feel like it's easier in that way. I also feel like it's just very easy to find communities for things that you're interested in. So for like example, if you play Animal Crossing, it's super easy. There's a million people that play Animal Crossing. You could just hop on a Reddit and see if there's like a Discord chat or a website or a forum that people are chatting on. And then you can just go to like the appropriate place to have conversations with people that way. And not limited only to Animal Crossing, but like many other games as well, whether they're creative games, shooting games, or just people looking to like role play. Like you can find a little bit of everything on the internet. So for that reason, I feel like it's very easy. Losing friends, easier or harder?
I feel like this can go both ways, but I'm going to say easier. It is very easy to lose somebody as a friend only because it's going with the same thing as that you're behind a screen. And especially if they don't know you at a really personal level, because sometimes when you're on the internet, you don't want to put your whole self out there. So, like, if you say the wrong thing or you do the wrong thing that they don't like, or they might find offensive, or they might get defensive about, it is very easy for them to just cut off all connection with you and just be like, bye. For me, I think it's easier to lose friends and it's easier to make friends. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, to be honest, and it kind of sucks sometimes.
I 100% agree. I think as well, and not to just piggyback and say I agree with everything that you're saying, but I also feel like it's so simple to get rid of people when you're talking on the internet, whether you're doing it through Discord or you're on a Tinder date or something like that. You can literally just press one button and boom, you never have to hear from them again. Now, if they make a new account and they start following you on a different account, sometimes that's a whole different story. And that does happen, especially like with internet relationships or like people that are looking for like intense friendships, like people that are very like clingy. You see that more often. But for me, a lot of my internet friends that I've lost, I don't say that they've ended with me like blocking them or anything like that. It was usually just like, hey, we came to like some type of disagreement and now we don't talk because of the disagreement. Like there was no way to proceed, or maybe they just didn't have a care to proceed. So that's one way, but the other way is just like you lose touch with some people. Like there's some people that you're friends with, and it's like that meme, like, oh, last signed in like 5 years ago. Sometimes they just forget, you know.
No,
They don't use the
yeah.
same accounts anymore. Their life changed, so now they don't have the same space. I mean, we were talking about MMOs before, not having the space and the time to have something like that in your life. It's the same thing with people sometimes, and it sucks, but that's just the reality of it. And for many people, and this is me going off on a little tangent here, for many people I feel that you're friends with them in real life, and it comes to a point where you kind of have to be internet friends in a sense because you don't make the time to meet up for whatever reason. Maybe you have a wife now, maybe you have kids now, maybe you have a job that takes all of your time up. There's so many different ways that you can fall into like an internet friend category without even it being like you're a legit internet friend. It's kind of crazy, but that's the world that we live in 2022.
Yeah, that's kind of the sad truth about it all. Like even now, like it's funny that you say that like people like, we all have a life, like we end up getting married, we have kids, whatever. There's actually like I actually got a message from somebody that I haven't spoken to in years. Like I'm gonna say like 5 years at least. And he messaged me the other day saying like, "Hey, I know it's been a long time, but I hope you're doing well." And I was like, "Oh my God." I was like, that's crazy because we were friends on Steam and I haven't really gone through my Steam's friends list. So like I still had people on there from like, 6, 7 years ago. So it's crazy. Even like you think you like there are times, and these times are always nice, is that you think you lost touch with someone and they don't want to talk to you anymore. They moved on with life and all that stuff, but to have that same person like come back and be like, "Hey, like I hope you're doing well. Like it's been a long time." Like that it is kind of nice. And I always think that's really nice to hear from someone that you haven't heard from in a very long time, especially when you were kind of close with them and you always played video games together and that kind of thing. But yeah, it does suck when people kind of just drop off the face of the earth and you're like, I hope they're okay. Especially if you never had any sort of like bad blood with them or had any sort of argument or disagreement or anything like that. I think it really sucks that when like that person kind of just ups and disappears. And then it also sucks when you actually do have a disagreement with somebody and they just don't want to talk to you anymore.
Right. And you have no control over that because, they're entitled to their own opinion, whether it's good or bad or whatever. But, you wanna lean into the good times, and sometimes the good times aren't there. And, you just have the bad times, and that's the taste that they have in their mouth. But just like you said before, sometimes with you're friends with people that fall off the face of the earth for whatever reason, and they never forgot about you. And you can tell that, like, hey, like them just reaching out and sending a message shows that they were thinking about you at some point. And just feeling that is like very refreshing. I can't speak today, but like it feels good,
Yeah,
you feel like you did something right, you didn't treat somebody wrong, and you feel like they got your back in a sense.
right.
Nothing wrong with that. And I think that's cool because that actually leads into the next one. Finding people with common interests. Is that easier or harder for you?
Oh, definitely easier, especially when you look for like a Discord or a or any sort of server that basically is around the same interests as you, especially at the time. Like for
Right.
me, way back when I really like started, I guess PC gaming is when I got my first. Long story short, I'm going off on a little thing here, but like I my first like I guess my first real PC game that I played was Smite and Minecraft. It was a little bit of both, especially when Minecraft really blew up. Like it came out in was that 2009? I think it was. I think.
It
But
was like sometime in like 2000. I think in 2010 or 2011 it came out. I'm gonna look
yeah.
it up right now.
So, but like I was joining around like, when it first was like officially released versus in between like the beta and the first official release of the game.
Right.
I used to despise it. When it was in beta and alpha and everyone was talking about it, I despised the game. I don't know what
Really?
changed my mind, but I ended up begging my mom to get me this game, and she did end up buying it for me. And I played it on my Mac for years until I got my first gaming laptop. But I used to join like cuz YouTubers were definitely like doing like a lot of different Minecraft servers. Like they had their own servers that people could go on to join their community and make friends and like share like that common interest in like, this YouTuber plus Minecraft. So, it was basically my first introduction into joining a community. I used to watch I know she's still around. I used to watch, Justine. I know she doesn't go by
I
that name
just
any
mean.
I know she doesn't go by that name anymore, but, obviously, I'm sure you've heard of her. She reviewed Apple products for a long time. But she also had a gaming channel, and she was opening up her own Minecraft server. And I was like, "Oh my god, like, this would be so cool if I could join," because it was completely free to join, you just obviously had to purchase the game. So
Right.
when I got the game, it was basically like that was the first thing I did is that I went in there and I didn't really know too much about Minecraft, I just knew what I saw in those videos, and I ended up actually joining a group of people that also shared interest in her and also another YouTuber that I watched at the time. So it was like my first intro into like, having a little group of friends. And we ended up sharing Skype contacts. It was
Skype.
When Skype was a thing. And We ended
Yeah.
up talking through there and like, voice chatting and stuff like that. Like this is before Discord existed.
Right.
So I've been through a lot of different like voice chats and stuff like that. So like there was Skype and then there was TeamSpeak.
TeamSpeak. Yes. Before Discord, there was TeamSpeak.
TeamSpeak was
That
like
was good.
it was good. It
It
was
was
very
solid.
good. Yeah. But yeah, so that was my first intro into a community and then the whole Minecraft expansion grew even more. And I was server hopping a lot. So I hopped from server to server to server, like kind of meeting people and also just playing games and having a good time. Cause about to get a little real, but like I didn't have a lot of friends in school. So the internet and playing these games and jumping in these servers was kind of my escape from reality and escape from all of the personal things that were happening in my life at the time.
Right.
So it was basically like my happiness, like joining these servers and meeting these people and they were actually really nice and I was like, this is really cool.
There was a genuine interest from them to you.
Right. So, but just like all things, they do come to an end at some point. The server ended up getting shut down after I think about a year. So I ended up kind of losing contact with all those people and we all kind of went our separate ways. And then but there were still YouTubers like putting out like Minecraft servers. So like I kept looking and I kept, discovering new YouTubers and watching them and really enjoying them. And then I would join their Minecraft servers. Probably around in like 2012, I joined one by the YouTuber, he's a Twitch streamer now, by the name Sly Fox Hound. And I joined his Minecraft server and it was just kind of a short-lived thing. So I kind of like joined and then like I didn't really meet too many people there.
It's kind of
Um
big, right?
yeah, it was a lot of people. So like you kind of learn that when you go into like a higher, I guess, subscriber viewer base on like a YouTuber, it's going to be a lot of people that you're going
The
to see.
population, because the YouTuber has so much reach
Right.
that they're able to pull so many people, and then it becomes like everybody just talking over one another.
Yeah.
There's no space for somebody to have like the spotlight on them for a minute or two.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it becomes difficult. I've been in those situations before. It's not the easiest to stand out in a group of people where, you feel like maybe somebody's a little bit more interesting or they have like a lot more going on than you.
Oh yeah,
And
definitely.
then, people are naturally going to gravitate towards the people that are more outgoing. Me specifically, like I relate to joining a lot of internet communities. However, I feel that sometimes I can be a little bit more outgoing. And then there are other times where I'm just like not, and I just dial it all the way back, maybe because I don't know people and I don't feel comfortable talking to people about certain things, or maybe I just don't feel comfortable talking to them at all because I don't know them. And I'm sure you can relate to that in a way too, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's one of those things where I'm obviously not an outgoing person. Like, it takes a lot for me to even like put myself out there and like to talk to somebody. So like joining such a very populated server was like very, very difficult because even saying hi is sometimes like a really hard thing to do. And unfortunately, it still even happens to a lot of well-loved YouTubers and a well-loved Twitch streamers because you want to enjoy somebody and you want to be like, oh my God, like this person's really good. And you want to talk to them. But it's really hard because the chat's going so fast. You can't interact with anybody and you can't even say hi because they won't be able to acknowledge you because it's going too quickly. There's no way for them to even see you.
Right.
And
Unless you donate and you put your
oh yeah.
message in a donation, right?
Yep, basically. Or you subscribe and you're like, "Hi, I'm here."
Then you get
So,
a nice warm response. But
right.
only when it's that crazy.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, yeah. And then going back to what you were saying before, yeah, absolutely. Minecraft came out in 2009.
Yep.
I was along that bandwagon as well. I think I joined late 2010 when they were in beta. It was like pre alpha almost. I think
Mhm.
there wasn't much to do. It was like you just put blocks down and you run around, you run away from zombies and creepers. It
Oh
wasn't
yeah.
like how it was now. You have the end and the nether and all this other stuff in between, a million ways to customize and enchanted items. It was literally just blocks and you building stuff and trying to be creative and not die at the same time.
Oh yeah,
Completely
definitely.
different Minecraft than what we have today. Going back to what I was talking about with Zach last time was Minecraft today. You have the education version, which is like allowed to be played in some schools where they teach biology and about biomes and how weather
Mhm.
temperature works and stuff like that, which is really cool. It's really, really cool. And then going back to what you said about iJustine as well. iJustine, actually, she still goes by the name iJustine. I was looking her up. She is still very much big on YouTube and just recently talked about some stuff. She just released a new video not too long ago. So she's still going strong with 7 million
Oh
subscribers.
yeah,
Still doing her thing, which is really cool. Understanding others, easier or harder?
harder.
Harder. Wow. Okay.
I only say that because everyone's different, and it's honestly, you don't know how different people can be unless, like, you interact with enough people. You might think that someone can take the same joke that someone else can, but it's more of understanding why people do things that they do. I've talked to I just not even a number, but there's a lot of people that I've spoken to with a lot of different personalities and a lot of different vibes. So there's a lot to be said because some people are different. Some people you vibe with, some people you don't. And that's the sad reality. It it's one of those things where for me, I feel like it's harder only because I always try to not say the wrong thing. Because I don't want that person to get upset with me. I don't want someone to get mad at me because, "Oh, but why did you say it like that?" Well, I didn't mean it like that, you know?
So you're not confrontational in that sense.
Oh, no, I'm definitely not confrontational. I try to watch how I say things, the way I say things. Sometimes I don't say anything at all because I don't wanna say the wrong thing.
I feel like I am very much the same. In that I just want to live my life without conflict sometimes. And I think especially on the internet, it's really easy to have a misunderstanding if you're having a conversation with somebody in text, but there's a specific tone that might be underlined that you didn't really think of before something was sent, and then you receive it in that way and you get bent out of shape over something that was just a miscommunication. I feel like that happens more often than not, as opposed to you speaking with somebody over a voice channel and then having that disagreement with them about how they said something. Because usually when it's in the moment like that, it's either nipped in the bud, or like you don't want to talk about it anymore, or you just move on from that person and you don't have that interaction again. But sometimes it's like they say something that seems so how would I even word this? It seems like it's not supposed to be offensive in any way, but the hints of like a tone that was coming out make it more offensive than what it's supposed to be. And then you just get into this big argument for no reason. And it's
Right.
all a misunderstanding. It was all for nothing. I feel like that happens all the time.
I was just gonna say, and that's the sad reality. It really sucks because it's like you can, at least for me, I've always been kind of like a people pleaser. Like I don't like making people upset. I want to be able to I especially like back then, I wanted to be able to be friends with everybody and make everybody happy, but obviously it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that, and it sucks because it's like I still try to do that now, and it's it doesn't help, but I that's just my personality and the way that I hope and try to do things is that I wanna be able to make everybody happy, but for some reason, there's always, like, that part of someone that just doesn't like you, and you don't know why, and I was that person that always wanted to know why. Like, what did I do? Like, what did I say something? Did I do something? Did I look at you the wrong way? It could be a million things. And that's
It could
why
be a ton. It's a
yeah,
lot to take on.
and that's why I that's why I really do say it is hard to really understand, like, people, especially on the internet, because you don't know what they're thinking, and you don't know if they muted their mic and they said something nasty about you. You don't know.
Very true. So if you're saying that making friends is easier on the internet, losing friends is easier on the internet, finding people with common interests is easier on the internet, and understanding others is harder on the internet.
Mhm.
How do you feel about having others understand you? Is that easier or harder?
I feel like it's easier. At least the way that I always presented myself, I feel like it was always easy to read me. Like to read when I'm upset or to read when I'm happy or to read if I'm sad. I feel like for people for to understand me, like I said before, everyone's different. So everyone takes things differently. But at least the way that I presented myself, I feel like it is easier to understand how I feel about if you say something to me or if you do something that I don't like or like something like that.
I think sometimes like you let things go at face value. You are who you are, and you're not going to try to like change who you are to appease other people. But at the same time, you're not going to lie about how you're feeling about something that somebody said, or about, just how things turned out in general. You're going to give your honest feedback to that person, and you're going to be yourself unapologetically, which is something that's really good. I can't say that everybody thinks that way, and I can't say that everybody does that way. Some people just, they want to be a people pleaser in a different way. They'll change their entire personality and what they believe just so that way they can avoid conflict. But you remain true to yourself, which is something that's completely different.
Right.
So if that's the case, then we'll lead to the last easier or harder that I have prepped for today. So having others understand you is easier, and understanding others sometimes can be harder. But accepting a different perspective on the internet, do you feel like that's easier or harder? That's something completely different than understanding where
Right.
somebody's coming from. You're accepting what they believe in. So, I mean, this can go a million different ways, right? If you
Mhm.
talk about different forms of communities on the internet.
Mhm.
But for you, what has your experience been like?
I feel like it's easier only because at the end of the day, you can always log off even if you don't agree with it. And you can always just be like, you know what? I don't want to. I mean, accepting it is one way, doesn't mean you have to still agree. It's more of just, you know what? It is what it is, and you just have to accept it for what it is. It doesn't mean I have to continue being their friend. It doesn't mean I have to continue acknowledging them or even talking to them. Sometimes at the end of the day, it's just, what can you do?
You can't do much. The people are going to be people no matter what.
Yeah.
Everybody's an individual, and on the internet you meet so many. Everybody is their own person, and everybody does what they want to do. So they're going to throw their opinions out, and sometimes there's going to be an opinion there that you just don't agree with. And you're very much correct in that you can absolutely log off, and you can absolutely click off of whatever tab you have open that's tied to that opinion. You find so many opinions on the internet from people who claim to be professionals to people that feel like they know it all on like forums like Reddit and 4chan. You meet so many of these people, even friends and family members on Facebook and Instagram that feel like they know everything. But it's becoming even increasingly easy to just ignore a lot of those opinions, and even like you can accept them for who they are, whatever their opinions are. You just accept it and move on. But I think it's a different layer to like accept it and kind of see where they're at and kind of match that energy. And that's it's not really something, and this goes into a whole different story that I'm not going to get into, but it's not really something that I try to like match energies with. Like if it's something that I just don't agree with, then I just don't agree with it. And much like you, I'm not gonna have an argument about it. I'm not gonna be confrontational just because I don't agree with the way something was said. Sometimes I kind of just bite my tongue, and I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna remember that. And if it happens again, then at that point you can kind of make the adjustment that you need to make. But I
Right.
don't feel like you have to make that move every single time that something bad happens. Sometimes it's just like, oh, it is what it is. Oh well.
Right.
But I want to move into something that's a little bit more personal. And it's talking about being friends with somebody that you've never met in person. And I feel like being friends with somebody in person that you've known for years, you get this like feeling in your stomach, right? You know who they are, you appreciate them for who they are. You're not judging them or anything like that. You're just friends with them. And some people you've known for many, many, many years, and then for whatever reason, you guys have a falling out. Maybe it's an argument, maybe it's relationship thing. Maybe it's something that somebody said. I don't know. But what I do know is that you have that feeling of, damn, like I really enjoyed my time that I spent with this person, and we're no longer as close, and I feel some type of a way about it. So to you, do you feel like when you meet somebody on the internet and you share all of these personal, intimate memories and relationships, and you spend so much time together talking, playing games, doing whatever it is that you do together in your communities, in your friend groups, do you feel like when you lose that person, it's similar in a way to when you lose somebody in real life? And if so, what is the difference?
It's 100% the same thing as losing someone in real life, the same way losing someone in on the internet, especially if you've never I mean, granted, you've never met them before, you never had to see them face to face in person, but it still hits you the same way. Like, at least for me, the longest like friendship I've really had is probably about 10 years.
That's
So
a good amount of time right there.
it is. It's a long time. It's a long time. And even then, at the end of the day, it still didn't work. And it sucks. It really does. Because even if you put 110% into any sort of relationship, whether it be like, an actual relationship or a friendship or anything like that, if that person doesn't give it to you back, at the end of the day, it's gonna hurt you even more.
So you need to have those feelings reciprocated in some
Exactly.
way.
At
Okay.
least for me, that's the way that I always wanted it to be, but it was never that way. Any friends that I've ever had on the internet, especially if it only lasted maybe 6 months or maybe 2 or 3 years, it's still especially back then, it still hit me very, very hard because like I said before, I didn't have a lot of friends growing up, especially in real life. Yeah, you have people that you meet in school and stuff like that, but there's a difference between having people in school that you talk to and having like people that actually want to hang out with you outside of that. So yeah, I had people at school that I've spoken to, but I never really had people like that be like, "Hey, I'm going, to the park. Do you want to come?" Like, I've never really had that growing up. So, especially since my parents were so strict back then and stuff like that. So, things happened and I had to like find that escape and I found people that I thought were my friends and that ended up not being the case. And then I ended up losing like a friend that I had for, those 10 years and they ended up it's such a stupid thing too because it's one of those things where it's just a simple like they didn't wish me happy birthday and they came up with some dumb excuse as to why they didn't do that. So, it's one of those things where it's like, it takes that one thing and it's all over and it sucks and there's nothing you could do about it and it's like you try to fill that hole with more people and it doesn't work. That's how it's always been for me. I know everyone has their own experiences. Well, it's the internet. No one cares or no one, you know, everyone's different. But like for me personally in my experiences, I've had so many it doesn't matter if I've known them for however many years. At the end of the day, it still hits like a truck because it's like you put in everything and you talk to them every day and you do everything with them and you play games and you do all these things and at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because all that got thrown out the window because they said something or they did something or they believed someone else over you.
Yeah, I mean, I totally hear that. I think that sometimes it's very easy for us to forget that there's somebody else who is a person with their own opinions, feelings, whatever on the opposite side of things. So when you go through everything, sometimes you have these disagreements and you can't come to a conclusion together and you're just like, damn, man, like, this person is so stupid. And you get so aggravated with how they're acting. You just forget, like, hey, like maybe they're going through something. Maybe you don't understand everything that's going on in their life because we only see a certain side of people on the internet. It's very different when you meet somebody in real life. And we can both speak to it because and we were talking about this a little earlier before we went live. We've both met people on the internet that we care very deeply about. I met my fiance on the internet back way back when. I'm talking like we were talking in the early 2010s. We were having our first conversations. And we were just friends back then. We weren't looking for anything like relationshipy. It just came to be, right? So I think it's very different when you think about those type of relationships and how you feed those relationships as well. Because the people that you meet online, although they're not your significant other, we can talk about significant others all day, but they're not your significant other. They're just another person, but it's still a relationship. It still requires all of the same things that you would feed to a wife or a fiance or a girlfriend or whatever. You have to nurture that relationship. You have to talk to these people. You have to play games with these people. You have to share intimate memories with these people. And if not, then that relationship falls apart, much like any other. But sometimes those relationships don't work out no matter how you water them. The same thing like with a relationship. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. It wasn't meant to be. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that you have to wish the person bad or anything like that. But just understanding that, okay, things didn't work out and they didn't work out for a reason, and unfortunately, I'm not going to see this person again. It sucks. It sucks, but we go through it so often now, especially with the internet, that I can't say that we become numb to it, but we become like, part of us becomes desensitized to it because it's so normalized now.
Oh yeah, definitely. And like going off of what you said, like you met your fiance like way back when. The same thing was for me. The only thing is that like with a mix of that plus like everything that happens, because life happens and things happen and there's nothing you can really do.
Happens
um
quick.
Comes with also almost losing that person. Losing that person because you're so in your head about you're worried about everything else and you do things that you're not very proud of
Yep.
and you end up almost losing yourself. I mean, luckily I was able to work through those things and I was able to recuperate those things and make it better, but it's still one of those things where it's like when you try so hard and you do so much, it takes a toll on you. Like it's bad for your mental health and it's bad for just your sanity. Like you can go insane and it's just the internet. And the thing is that like I didn't really have anyone to tell me like it's okay or it's going to be okay cuz my parents, they didn't really think much of it because you know how parents can be like they don't understand when it comes to certain things because for them, they grew up and they went outside and they met people and they met people at school and whatever.
Right. It's a
um
generational difference at that point.
Right. So, like, for me, it's like I had to deal with it myself and I had to learn. And that's the thing. Like, granted, yes, I can help people understand, like, why does this happen? But when I was younger and I was going through this stuff, I didn't have anyone to tell me, like, oh, this is happening because of this. It's more of like when we were younger and when we were witnessing these things, and I'm only 24. So this was still only like 10 years ago, like 10,
Right.
9, 10 years ago. So it was like one of those things where it's so normalized and people go through it all the time and they can kind of seek help and, seek people that understand. But back then, no one understood. So no one was going through the same thing I was going through, and no one had to deal with the same things I had to deal with.
Absolutely.
So,
Completely different time that you're talking about in society and internet society, and just seeing how we've expanded and we've included a lot of things that were once seen as something that wasn't important, right? Like when you're talking mental health and you're talking the internet, I feel like these go hand in hand, mostly because it's not face-to-face interaction and it can spread very quickly on the internet, whether it's a meme or if it's somebody's personal stuff. The internet has a wide reach. So for us to kind of forget that would, it would kind of be sad in a way.
right.
Ideally, what is your ideal internet community? Like let's remove hobbies for a second and just talk about like personality and structuring a community. What are some things that stand out to you when creating a community, and what are some things you would include in your ideal community?
Just people having common sense. That's a big thing. I feel like I feel like a lot of people take advantage because it's the internet and people don't think common sense is a thing. But mainly common sense would be like a big factor in building like my own community or building a community in general, is that people just have basic common sense. Like obviously don't, be a specific way, like don't be an ass. Don't be, be nice, don't be rude. Like just basic things. Like even like especially if Not talking about, like, hobbies and, like, things that, we all have in common. More of just, like, basic human decency, basically.
Friendliness, the golden rule, treating others the same way you
Yeah.
would want to be treated, speaking to somebody in a way that isn't derogatory or harmful in any way, sharing sharing moments in which you're available to feel vulnerable in a sense without feeling judged. I think that's also super important
Oh, yeah.
because you join a lot of communities and you want to be yourself, but sometimes people aren't happy with the way that you are, so they have something to say about it. And it's very easy for them to say something when they're not looking at you face to face and they're hiding behind the computer.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but allowing yourself that space and having others allow you to be vulnerable in that moment, I think that's impactful, and that's something that I've always strived to incorporate, whether I was a part of a clan or a gaming group or an internet community or a Discord server. Just giving people that space to be themselves, super important.
Definitely.
And that brings us to the end of the episode. So I just want to thank Cindy for joining us. As always, thank you for listening to Hot Seat. Thank you for joining, Cindy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
If you enjoy the show, please drop a rate and review on Apple Podcasts when it goes live. And be sure to come back next week for a discussion with Christian. We're going to be talking a little bit about internet security and the state of the internet. Until then, this is Heccy, and thanks for watching. Appreciate you guys. Take care.